There we go. Got to find that unmute button. Um, yeah, this is kind of a new thing for us, so we're all playing with it and trying to figure out a new way to engage everybody. And that's always kind of been what we've looked at Bike Month for, is a way of engaging the cycling community to get more people out, to get more people involved, and to kind of create a sense of that there's more than just this club or these few friends that ride together, but really a greater sense of community across El Paso, and really by extension with the whole world. I mean, Bike Month is not anything that's new. It's been around for well over 40 years. Started by the League of American Bicyclists, and they've been pushing it, and it's quietly kind of gained traction as more people began to ride. But it was originally it was really kind of just the cycling clubs, and now as more people are riding um, for all sorts of reasons, whether it's recreation, exercise, transportation, it's taking on a different meaning and a different feel for so many different people. And hopefully with what we end up talking about today and over the next few weeks, we can work to create a larger sense of community. And I hope everybody here is going to invite their friends and their friends next time. And if there's something that we don't cover this week, please feel free to bring it up. If there's a better time, please, let us know. We want to be as inclusive as possible. You want to go, Melissa?
Sure. Yeah, Bike Month has been going on for several years, and here in El Paso, I want to say we're like on our 8th year of celebrating. And it's always been a time to have people who usually don't ride or new to riding can kind of find their place in the community and start riding more and more comfortably, because typically if you try to ride alone here in El Paso on our streets, it can feel very dangerous. So part of the initiatives with the group rides and Bike Month is to have everybody feel comfortable and safe as a group and to increase visibility. And to just and to ride and in the spirit of it since it started, and we continue that this year, just in a different way, right? So
cool. Your audio was cutting out a little bit there at the end, Melissa.
okay.
Okay, cool. So we did receive some questions that we can start discussing, but if anybody has something they'd like to bring up, you can use the chat box or you can raise your hand and then you can get the chance to speak. So fire away.
Turn on Wi-Fi so that hopefully that helps audio here. So yeah.
Cool, yeah, it was just a little glitchy at the end.
Well, if you all don't have questions, I know Kat has some stuff that some people have already sent to us. But if that's the case, then you're just going to be hearing from Melissa, Kat, and myself the whole time, and we want you to be a part of this too. So, feel free. Anything you want to talk about with Bike Month, about Bike Month, or related to bikes. The sky's the limit, really.
I put a question in. Oh yeah, we have some questions now. One basic thing is that what do you need to do repairs at home, or how can you start figuring out how to work on your bike, or where would you want to take it in El Paso? Maybe that could just be a quick answer. And then it looks like Crystal has a question. Do we have to wear masks when we're riding bikes? The ordinance says unless you're exercising, you don't need a mask. Maybe somebody can clarify that.
Well, I'll take on the mask one. Technically, every time you go outside, that's the recommendation from the city and the county right now, that you're supposed to wear a mask. It's kind of a problem for some people because you're out there, you're exercising, you're breathing heavy, and sometimes that makes it a little bit more difficult to do what you got to do. Um, that said, these are the recommendations, and we don't, it really comes down to you, and a lot of things that when we talk about writing, sometimes the best answer is it depends. You have to look at the situation, you have to look at the conditions, you have to do what is right and safe for you. The wearing of masks is really about what's safe for the community as a whole. And so it's one of those things where, is this going to be detrimental to the people around you? If you're writing in a group, which we hope you're not, absolutely wear a mask, because we want to make sure that you're not potentially spreading the COVID-19 virus, which has got us in this mess in the first place. And we want to get past that, but we know everybody has their personal feelings, but for us, the reason we're doing the social distancing rides, the reason we're doing things like this instead of getting out and meeting people in person, is because we want to flatten the curve. We want to get this over with as soon as possible. We want to make sure nobody gets sick that does not need to get sick. And so we're going to err on the side of caution. And that, and as long as the city and the county are saying masks are a good thing, we're going to go with that. What was the other question?
I mean, I can add a little bit to the mask
Okay.
thing. Just from a personal perspective, when I've been out riding, I usually carry it with me, even when I'm like walking with my dog or something, just in case I get to an area where there are other individuals, and to show respect for them, I go ahead and just have it on hand, and I put it on at that time. Or if I'm comfortable, if I have a lightweight one, I've used it before during the ride. And I wasn't with, a group or anything. I just wrote it mostly to make others feel comfortable if I was in their presence or came near. Sometimes you find yourself sharing space with others, where you just don't think about it. And so I would say just have it handy, or if you're comfortable wearing it in riding and you can do it, by all means, go ahead. If it's impeding your exercise and your breathing, just wear it as needed. I would say that would be what I would recommend.
That's great. Thank you. I will also say wearing a more lightweight mask is what I've been doing when I'm biking. And yesterday I didn't have it on at the beginning because it just gets really sweaty. It was basically like a bandana, but I actually swallowed a bug, and then I was like, yeah, I should wear the mask, if nothing else, to not swallow bugs. Okay, so the second types of things were maybe people that are looking for a bike or looking for where to start with refurbishing a bike. What would be some ideas of places they can look for, things they can look at, what tools would they need? I can speak a little bit on that too, but I'm very, very basic at-home maintenance, but I have a bike pump. I have all the materials to fix the flat, so change a tube, take the tire off the wheel, fix the tube, patch the tube, put the tire back on the wheel. But I don't have too many other tools other than that. So like major repairs, I usually take it to a bike shop, and now the closest one that's open is Crazy Cat. I was just there today, and they have a huge backlog of bikes. Everybody is getting their bikes fixed up right now. So it's about a week turnaround if you take it to Crazy Cat. The other thing I do at home is I do chain maintenance. So I will clean the chain with something like Simple Green, and I have like a dry chain lube that I'll put on after. And I try to do that every month at least. I'm a frequent rider, so having those materials like rags, a degreaser of some kind, and then a lube of some kind is good too. I don't have a bike stand. I work everything on the ground. I just flip my bike upside down, and that seems to work, but it's nice to have a bike stand too, I would say. In terms of looking for a bike, does somebody else want to chime in on where somebody could
I was going to add to with the repairs, home repairs. I know Park Tools has a set of videos that you can watch, among other people who have posted, on YouTube and stuff that you can watch. But I know that we had talked about through the organization recording some videos, offering some basic maintenance as you were describing, Kat, so people can follow at home. And also, if we do it live, I guess if you have questions, we can do it together and figure things out, because all bikes are different. And then for finding a new bike, I would suggest, if you have a budget, if your budget's smaller, then start on Craigslist. And there's, a set of things that you want to look for when you're on Craigslist. Making sure that the bike is kind of in working order, and then seeing what parts of it are, will need replacement, or if you definitely would need a tune-up, and just being aware that those costs are part of it as well. And also, I've pointed people in the direction of, there's a bike shop on Alameda and Copia called Zombie Bike Shop, and the gentleman there, Rick, he sells used bikes, pretty decent used bikes that he works on there, and decent prices that are negotiable. So that's another resource. And if you want to start with a new bike that's lower cost, I always refer people to the Crazy Cat online link, and you can sort there through prices. So you can go prices lowest to highest and see what they have in different styles of bikes. And if they have it in stock, you can always try it there at the shop. Or if they need to get it out of storage, maybe you can request a certain bike, and that way. And at any time, if you have questions, you're looking for a certain type of bike, or it's your first time looking for a bike, you can always message us here at Velo Paso, and just putting us out there as a resource. I've gone several times with people to places to look at bikes, to size them, and just mostly listened to see what type of bike it is they're looking for, and what style of bike would be best suited for their needs. So we are a resource as well, and hopefully soon we can put out some videos or host another Zoom that goes over maintenance, or maybe just, getting a new bike, where to start, and that sort of thing. So.
Great. Thank you for that, Melissa. That's great. Ricardo commented that there's also a bike repair cyclopedia in Juarez. If you have the ability to cross, you could take your bike there. I'm going to do the questions in order. So another question is, what is a good way to be more visible when riding alone during daytime? At night, it's easier to be seen because you have lights, hopefully. But in the daytime, it's harder for people to see cyclists. I would also say that people are not looking for cyclists most of the time. And some of our roads, the way they're designed, it's like just totally in the periphery of where the car is. And obviously it's about being on routes that you're comfortable with, but we definitely talk a lot about this, the best ways to get around the city that feel safe for people. I don't know, Scott, do you want to give a few answers on how we could be better visible in the daytime?
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways to do that. Some people will actually turn their lights on during the day, just like cars have their lights on. It gives some extra visibility. Wearing just bright colors is what some people will recommend. There's also what's called taking the lane, which is something it's kind of hard to get into here, something that's really better displayed, but it's really on streets with lower volumes and lower speeds. You can actually get out there, and instead of riding next to the curb, you actually ride out in the middle of that street, right where a car would be, and it puts you in their line of sight. You are right in front of them, and that way they can see you. As the speed goes up, this is not necessarily a good thing, because as the faster you go, your peripheral vision as a driver will close in on you just like that. and it's harder for people to see. And that's one of the challenges with being off to the side, uh, as um, as far right as practicable is what the law actually says, and which is not as far right as possible. It's as far right as you are feel safe and comfortable with. And sometimes that's a challenge because drivers just aren't looking for anything. And I actually posted something this morning. It was a memory of something that happened to me 6 years ago. I was going down the street. I looked over. I saw somebody at the intersection. They were at a stop. I could see them tracking me. I was watching their face. Their head was turning. It was in line with me, and they still started to pull out because in their mind, a person on a bike, a person walking just was not traffic. And this person did not see me until I yelled at them, and then all of a sudden it's going, oh wow, and they had started to pull out. I swerved. I managed to avoid them, but it's one of these things. It's a perceptual issue, and that's why we talk about this riding, taking the lane, because it's one of these things where you're acting and riding as though you're a car, and you're doing all the things. You're in the lane where they expect you need to use the hand signals and all that. But in their mind, it's suddenly you go from being just this thing that's out there, some kind of obstacle. You're actually become part of traffic, and so they can see you better that way. So it really is a combination of a lot of things. But the best thing you can do is, if you do not feel safe on a particular roadway, if you do not feel safe there, don't get out there. Don't risk it. That's really uh, some comments. Just, I hate to say that because sometimes we need to get someplace and there is no safe option. But sometimes, in just erring on the side of caution might be the safe thing. So, I hate to say it, maybe that's the point where you get off over on a sidewalk, or maybe that's where you say, I got to pull out my phone, look at Google Maps, and see if there's another way to get there, because this just doesn't work for me. I don't feel safe. I don't feel comfortable. And if you don't feel safe, you don't feel comfortable, you're not going to be riding relaxed. Your body's going to be tensed, and you're not going to be able to react in the same way as you should be. And I know Melissa has a little bit on this and about doing the math in your head. So I'm going to let her kind of continue on with this, because I know she's got some stuff to add here.
This is pretty, in terms of, I guess, in general, defensive type riding. I suggest you always assume that the car or the person driving doesn't see you. And I always try to communicate with my body and with my eyes. I always also rely on other senses, like my hearing. If I feel the vibration of a car come too close, I want to make sure that I get out of the way. And also just communicating with the driver. Sometimes they try to wave you through. There may be other cars approaching that don't see you. So one way to communicate with your body that you're stopped, for example, is just to have your foot on the ground at a stop sign. And if there are other cars at a stop sign, I approach it the same way as I would be driving, and I look at them and let them, let them know that I'm occupying my space, that I'm here, acknowledge me, and those sorts of things. But it's really a case-by-case scenario. When you're at an intersection, there's different ways to position your bike, etc. So it's kind of a difficult question in that sense, because it depends where you are that you want to increase your visibility. But I would say, first and foremost, ride defensively, stand your ground, make the drivers acknowledge you, and communicate, whether it be with hand signals, or just by looking at the driver and saying, this is what I'm doing, letting them know. So you're predictable, and they can kind of make their call based on what you're going to do. So.
That's great. Thank you. I would also add, never trust a car. You don't know, even if someone's waving you, maybe they don't have their foot on the brake all the way, or there's somebody else pulling out next to them. It just, things, circumstances change really quickly. So you do have to be defensive. And even just yesterday, I was going through stopped at the intersection of Pershing and Cotton, which is a really busy, weird intersection. And I put myself in the leftmost lane, the middle of the road, just so it was clear that I was going straight through there. So it is a lot about where you position yourself, but also having the confidence to be able to do that. And yeah, I use hearing a lot. I don't really ride with headphones or anything like that because I can hear the cars behind me, that sort of thing.
I was going to make one other suggestion that I remembered is another way to kind of keep an eye on what a car might be doing is to watch their front tires. And I know we've talked about this before with my colleagues. Just if you're at a stoplight or a stop, the car is approaching a stopped area where you're rolling through. A good way to tell what they're gonna do or what they're still doing is by looking at their front tires. So if the front tires are still rolling, like Kat said, I don't trust it, and I position myself or stop or get out of the way, depending on what they're doing. If they've come to a complete stop and they've acknowledged you, you can tell because the front tires are still, they're not moving. Or if they're going to turn, you can tell that they're about to turn and which direction they're turning. So that's kind of another pointer when you're approaching intersections, how to kind of prepare for what's to come and what you need to do in order to avoid a collision.
That's great. So our timer is counting down. We have about 9 minutes left. There's one question about bicycle lighting on the wheels or frame. There's really cool like battery powered light packs that I found at like Target and stuff, and I usually wrap them around the frame. Sometimes I tuck them under like the cable housing too, just so they're really secure, and then put the battery pack behind the saddle or something. That's one way I've decorated my frame. I've also had a basket and wrapped lights around that before, which is really cool because cars can definitely see you then, especially at night. In terms of wheels, I would just be really careful like what you're putting. If you're putting spoke lights on, make sure they're like super secure because they can bounce off. Yeah, does anybody else have anything to add? And then I think our last question will be the one about future group rides, how critical mass and stuff will be affected. I think we can go into that in the last few minutes.
Let me jump on that one. It's hard to say because we don't know when things are going to change and when people are going to feel comfortable getting back together. I know right now there are some people that have already started riding in groups again, and if that's what they want to do, more power to them. But for us, I think we're going to be erring on the side of safety and caution for a little bit longer, so that because we don't want any of you to get sick and we don't want to get sick. And it's when you're out there riding, we're riding at basically a party pace. It's not a lot of exertion, so people aren't really sweating hard. People may not be really breathing hard. But for some of the new riders, they might not be in the kind of physical condition that allows them to do that. So they might have to be breathing heavy. And when you do that, there's a lot of stuff that comes out. And that's one of the best ways to spread this thing. And we don't want that to happen. And we don't know because we don't ask. And we may have to start asking this, are you immunologically deficient? And we hate to exclude people from these kind of rides because we want to be inclusive, but we may have to do that kind of thing. We may have to have one of those little temperature guns out there and say, you got a fever? Nope, can't do it. But then again, with our heat, is that a temperature or is it just because it's hot out there? It's we're going to be guessing a lot, and so at this point I think we're going to err on the side of safety for the next couple of months at least, just because. But that's why we want to do these social distancing rides where if you're out there, take the selfie, show people that you're riding. If you live with somebody, they reside with you, yeah, you can ride with them. I know it's not the same as the group rides. You don't get to see your friends. You don't get to chat with new people. But if we see the groups, and as well, if we do this online here, it's these social groups, these meetings may go longer and longer. That allows us to kind of chat and talk, and we're going to try and figure out some different ways to really kind of create some more opportunities for engagement. And I think we're going to have to be creative until we can go back to the tried and true rides.
I'm going to jump in and just say, I don't think we're going to have any gatherings. So our rides really involve like meeting points, stopping points where people are gathering. And I just don't think that's something that we see happening in the next few months. I don't really want to be taking people's temperatures or like policing them, but just limiting the amount of bodies together in one place is probably the smartest way for us to go right now. Okay. Yes, so fun bike-related videos. If you follow Velo Paso on Instagram, there's been a lot of stuff in the stories. There's links to other people doing workshops, and there's lots of YouTube videos that are cool to watch, especially for basic bike repairs. So we have been linking to some of that stuff on the Velo Paso Instagram and the Critical Mass El Paso Instagram in the stories. I'll also try to put some more stuff on Twitter. If you're on Twitter, we can do that too. Cool. Any closing statements from anybody? Thank you all for joining us today. I know it went a little bit shorter. Yeah, Matt, go ahead.
Thank you, Kat. I just wanted to say real quick, Ricardo, one thing that gives me a lot of peace of mind is for visibility issues is wearing something that's like highlight or yellow, anything that's like a really bright neon. Gives me that peace of mind during the daytime when I don't want to be. I mean, you can have that kind of anxiety attack when you're just like when cars are just going like flying by like on the left side of you and whatnot. But when I'm wearing this helps out a lot. And then a daytime visible light that I have in my rear is a Saigo light. It's like $35, and it's really effective during the daytime. So investing in a daytime visible backlight and then wearing coupled with this, I think that would be pretty good.
Cool. Thanks, Matt. Yeah, so if people have more questions, feel free to be messaging us. You can email us or message us directly on social media. I think we'd like to have more webinars for Bike Month, maybe one a week if we can do it. And one of them could be like a live repair session, like what Melissa was talking about. So yeah, do you want to say something, Mel?
Just in terms of, where to follow up from here, like everybody's saying, we're going to wait till the restrictions are lifted and it's okay to meet as groups again, whenever that is in the time frame. And until then, just, continuing to gather collectively the way that we have been, and keeping the lines of communication open. I know that we put some events together to celebrate Bike Month. And so I'd like to get some more information out there about how we intend on staying within the distance and keeping things compliant with not spreading COVID, but also being able to organize collectively to initiate what we wanted to do with the rest of the events for the month. Like I think one of them was delivering books to the little libraries. So whether we do that alone, organizing, when we're not face to face, but like this on Zoom, for example, and then figuring out how we can do that. I know there's other initiatives that we'd like to get started. So you may see on our pages, like one of the ones that we've been discussing has been how to engage with the essential working community here. And a lot of the work that we do is is the engagement with individuals who are not really represented within our transportation systems currently, such as, you know, people taking the bus places, people who rely on using the bike for transportation, who are you know, historically not represented within our mainstream, whether it be through, you know, city government or just in general mainstream culture. So we'd like to continue those ideas. So if you follow the page, social media, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, to look out for those initiatives. And also remember that we're in this together and we're trying to find solutions to reach out to our community during this time. So that would be my recommendation from now until we can meet again in person, is let's